An advantage of industry and of refinements in the mechanical arts is that they commonly produce some refinements in the liberal. Nor can one be carried to perfection without being accompanied in some degree with the other. The same age which produces great philosophers and politicians, renowned generals and poets, usually abounds with skillful weavers and ship carpenters. We cannot reasonably expect that a piece of woolen cloth will be wrought to perfection in a nation which is ignorant of astronomy or where ethics are neglected. That is one of the most eloquent arguments, that skills and aptitudes that sometimes get divided up into different categories depend on each other, and a culture which has the application and the precision of mind to be good at some of them is going to be good at all of them. So what I'd like to do now is quickly review some of the divides which both, I think, make the debate in Britain terribly confused, but also stand in the way of the recognition of the kind of connections that David Hume was writing about. Now, one kind of distinction is between types of institution. And we're told that universities are academic institutions, but further education colleges, for example, are vocational. But many courses that you do at university are vocational. And then, when you look at FE colleges and the courses that can be done at an FE college, it's perfectly possible, and indeed thousands of students do, to do an A-level in philosophy at an FE college, if that's what you want to do. And so one begins to see that academic and vocational are not alternatives. Then there are different types of learning. There are many disciplines where doing things with your hands really matters. So the practical capability matters, not simply the academic learning. Another distinction, which I find particularly frustrating, is the two cultures, arts v sciences. And I have to say that I think that the problem of the two cultures is a particularly acute problem in England. I think it's a real problem, and I think it arises, the more I study the subject, the more I'm convinced that it arises from a specific feature of our English educational system, namely the requirement to specialise at the age of 16. The decisions that we force on 16-year-olds in our education system create an appalling dilemma in which you have some people like myself. I did history, English and German as my A-levels. I greatly enjoyed them, but it did mean that I missed out on quite a lot of the intellectual advances of the modern world. And there are other people opting for physics and chemistry and maths who haven't written an essay or had to communicate in a foreign language or do anything like that since the age of 16. Another distinction is the two main routes into the jobs market. The route via higher education, and secondly, apprenticeships. And there is a kind of romance around the apprenticeship, and it is incredibly valuable to be able to learn on the job as you can with an apprenticeship. The apprentice initially starts off without fees and loans, but is earning from day one. However, the evidence, and it keeps on coming in from the economists who appraise this, is that in the long run, year on year through their careers, a graduate, on average, is going to enjoy greater earnings growth than an apprentice. And it looks as if the reason is that the apprentice skills in a particular trade or business activity are not as flexible. They don't enable you to go with the extraordinary changes in the modern jobs market, whereas it looks as if the higher education qualification gives you a set of skills that means you are set up for life. The last big tension, and that is skills v knowledge. Now, there is a classic picture of pouring facts into empty vessels as being boring, and the mastery of skills as being what the future is all about. This debate has been going on for hundreds of years. But looking back, the great Victorian social reformers, and right through into the Fabians and beyond, were collectors of facts and evidence. This was not a purposeless, random activity when they were trying to understand the sources of cholera. It was when they started collecting the data about where were the people who got cholera and connected it to polluted water supplies that they were able to make progress in social advance. And this remains relevant today because knowing stuff does matter alongside having skills. And increasingly, I recognise that skills are very hard to distinguish from knowing stuff. When I discussed once at a meeting with Peter Scudamore of the Football Association why we had a declining number of English football players in the English Premier League and what it was that put us at a disadvantage, he said a good Dutch player through their teens will, by the age of 16 or 18, have had hundreds of hours more football practice and training than an English teenager will have had. There will just be more of a structure to invest in them. And I conclude from this that the practice, the process of learning, is both, in many ways, a memory of lots of stuff that has happened, a memory of previous matches, but it expresses itself as a skill. And you can't master a skill without knowing the stuff.